This is the Dungeon Master's Handbook. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Dungeon Master's Handbook. I'm Michael Shorten, Chicago Wiz. Thank you for taking some time to listen to my podcast. Today we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about my other 9-year campaign, not the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons one, but rather we're going to talk about the one-on-one solo game with my wife, known as thePrincessWife, also known as Angie. Thought it'd be fun to talk a little bit about that and some of the fun things about it and challenges of running a solo game. So why would I run this? Well, it started about the same time that I started thinking about my AD&D campaign back in 2009. I had stumbled on an old map that I had made long ago, like about the mid-90s, when I was thinking about playing Dungeons & Dragons again. And I was also playing something called MUD. MUD is an old multi-user dungeon. It's text-based. You log in with a program like Telnet or some other text-based interface. And this MUD was called Akia. And I just, started spinning up a little world out of my head based on some of the locations and things that I had run into in Akia. And I ran into this back in 2009. I thought, gee, wouldn't it be neat to run a campaign on this? Well, who could I play with? Because I'm already, designing a world for my AD&D campaign. Well, I thought, hey, why not try a game with my wife? Now, Angie had some experience in playing AD&D back in her high school years, but really wasn't something that her or I had ever talked about doing together. But I thought, why not try? And she agreed to it. And so I started to think, well, how can I make this simple? Advanced Dungeons & Dragons has a pretty big learning curve in some aspects. How can I make this simple and fun? And play it in the way that I like to play D&D. Well, for rules, I started off using the simplest D&D rules I could find at the time, and that was called Microlight 20. Now, back in about 10 years ago, Microlight 20 and Microlight rules were kind of a fad. A lot of people were interested in it. It's basically a D&D game that is based on a couple of sheets of paper, if that much. The rules are extremely simple, D20 based, as you can imagine. There wasn't a lot there to do with the characters and whatnot, but it was surprisingly rich in that you could really have a fun game with it. So I started her off with that, and I presented the game to her in such a way that she didn't really need to know the rules. I set up the situation, told her what was going on, asked her what she wanted to do, and if there was ever a time that she needed to roll dice, I'd just tell her what dice to roll, and she'd roll, and away we went. Easy peasy. And we played like that for a couple of years. About 2009, 2010, I switched to using Swords and Wizardry White Book. Now, that is a very stripped-down version of Dungeons & Dragons. It's what they call a retro clone. If you don't know what that is basically writing or rewriting a D&D or any other game in such a way that it mimics the older rules and older versions, but it's brought up to date maybe with some modern formatting, a little bit better spelling and grammar in English, in the case of original Dungeons & Dragons, and just generally a little bit more accessible for today's audience. So I use Swords and Wizardry White Book. This was a retro clone of the original Dungeons & Dragons, as written in 1974. It's really a great version of D&D. It's a lot of fun to play with, and it's a lot of fun to create your own game based on this. It's a nice little tool book. Anyway, so I switched to that. that was more for me to be able to grow the campaign and do a lot more things with it. Microlight 20 was great, but I wanted to have access to spells and use some of the other supplements and things that I had laying around. And it was just easier to do that with coming up to a more fuller version of D&D, if you will. Anyway, so she didn't care about any of this. As long as I told her what to roll, which was basically a D20 and a D6, she was happy. So I've got a campaign world, I've got a version of D&D, and we set off. So what's been fun about this? For me, it's been quality time and a shared story and a shared experience. This is something that we have very, very full dynamic lives, and it's nice to be able to carve aside a couple of hours and sit down with Angie and play this game. Another reason was I got to share something with her that she saw me spending a lot of time on. She watches me work on my big campaign. She sees me paint the miniatures, go to these conferences. She watches me do this podcast. This was a way of being able to share some of that with her. It wasn't something that she never necessarily thought that she was interested in, but once we got to doing it, she got to really like it. Now, this campaign has gone through fits and starts over the years, but we've had quite a bit of fun. Right now, I'd say the average is once a month to 2 months that we play on average. Sometimes it's even longer. So what challenges have I ran into in running a one-on-one D&D campaign with someone? Kind of comes into the fact that when you have one person as the party, challenges are going to become quickly deadly. Encounters can become quickly deadly, and situations that may lend themselves to collaboration become harder to get through, such as puzzles or things that you have to do when it's nice to send the party to town and split up and go do these things. Well, now you have one person doing that, and plus with it being only her and I at the table, there's not other people that she can bounce ideas off of and hear their ideas and come up with a strategy. So one of the biggest solutions I came up with was to allow her to have a lot of hirelings and followers. This helps to even things out. As a hireling or follower, I can give her input, not necessarily leading her to the solution, but putting myself in the position of that hireling or follower. I can maybe, give her some ideas based on their viewpoint. Right now, she has a couple of fighter types, mercenary types as henchmen. She has a cleric who is a follower of hers, and she has a couple other hirelings that have come on, and they can all give her a unique viewpoint that maybe will help her come to a solution. Like, okay, we're surrounded, guys, what do we do now, kind of thing. I also have a main NPC that's been with her. Now, this main NPC isn't like a Mary Sue kind of NPC, meaning that, nothing can happen. This NPC can and has almost died before. And this main NPC is meant to be somewhat of a foil for her, someone that, she can bounce ideas off of. And it's easy for me to enact things, hooks, ideas, maybe help her over some of the bumps by using this main NPC for her to travel with. Now, what's kind of interesting is that in the game, the relationship between the main NPC and her is kind of echoing our marriage, even down to the wisecracks and ways that we banter with each other. So it's been a little odd, but kind of fun how that's all worked out. It's been nice, though, that, I can give her ideas. I've been playing for a long time. She hasn't. If she's stuck on something, then this main NPC can give her ideas. Well, I've heard of this, or what do you think of that? And she has that resource there to help her because she doesn't have, other people sitting around the table with her. Another challenge that I touched on was puzzles. When it's just one-on-one, give you an example, she was at a tunnel and there was a door that had a puzzle in it where she had to take pegs and put them in a certain order. There were a lot of clues laying around as to what to do. Now, if there had been a group, different people would have had different ideas and probably would have come up with a solution. She got stuck. So having the many followers and the main NPC was a way of saying, well, what do you think about this? Well, what if we tried that? And I didn't lead her to the solution that I gave it to her, but I did through these NPCs and followers asking her questions, she came up with the solution herself. One final problem that I have to worry about is, this is D&D, and I do run a lethal game of D&D in the old school style, so her PC could die. In fact, it's nearly happened once already, and there were a lot of grim faces between her and I at the table. I remember that very well. She was not getting good rolls. She was facing a pretty powerful creature, and it looked kind of dicey, but fortunately she made it through. I don't have a really good solution for this one. I have given her the options of rules like sacrificing the shield that I've mentioned in my AD&D campaign. I may even allow a save versus death if she falls below 0 hit points. But at some point she knows that she could very well die. And I think, given the story that she's worked up and the way the campaign has gone, we might have a family member step in so she could continue the campaign. Certainly don't want it to die with her. Haven't really given that a lot of thought or done much with it, but it is something I'm aware of. I don't fudge the dice, though. I do my rolls in front of her, and she knows darn well that, a set of unlucky rolls and could be having a bad day. One other thing, which is kind of funny, but it does happen, is the fallout. I've learned to have to live with a good amount of grumbling after the game and in between games when I, as the evil DM, have thwarted the plans of my princess wife, including taking things from her. And she does not like it that I'll take things from her in-game, of course. I took 2 powerful artifacts from her, and I still hear about that, the comments of how can you live with yourself. She had 2 powerful artifacts called Dragon Stones, and an evil mage wanted them. And so I played this evil mage to the hilt, using his spells the best way they could. She had a series of kind of unfortunate tactical decisions and unlucky rolls, and both of those artifacts were taken from her, and now she's trying to figure out how to get them back. Didn't have to sleep on the couch for that one, but it's something she's never let me forget that I did to her. It definitely was, if you remember the movie Indiana Jones, it definitely was an Indy Jones Belloc moment when I got the artifacts, and I'm sure after she hears about me talking about this on the podcast, I'm going to hear about it again. One of the other things that I've done is I've gotten her interested in other aspects of the game. She hasn't shown a lot of interest for the rules, but she does like knowing about how my other campaigns work. She loves to see me paint the miniatures and even helps me out with some of the color choices. By and large, she's content to have a game where she can play and imagine and tell me the things that she wants to do, and she doesn't have to worry about the rules all that much. So this has worked out very nicely. So what would I recommend to someone who is thinking about doing a one-on-one game? Well, first off, I say go for it. It is a lot of fun. It is surprisingly, I don't want to use the term intimate in a bad way, but it is a very intimate thing where you and this other person are sharing a game, sharing a story, and sharing some quality time together. And certainly in this day and age, that's not a bad thing. If I were going to run a one-on-one for someone else, starting out, I would find one of the beginner dungeons, one of the ones that especially made like in a quick start or, in your rule book, if it comes with a good sample dungeon, I would use that because more than likely there are good things that the player can learn from, especially if they're brand new to this and you're running a one-on-one with them. I used the sample dungeon out of the 1977 Holmes Basic Blue Book. That was the very first dungeon that she had ever went into, and she had a blast. I would recommend making some NPCs that your player can have a posse with. It's going to give them the ability to avoid a lot of issues that I've talked about already. And don't be afraid to present them challenges that force them to use the NPCs or to even gather NPCs. Don't make it to where, they only face one goblin. No, have them face a tribe of goblins. Force them to play the game of D&D. I certainly wouldn't let anyone out on a limb and not, give them advice. Maybe after the game you can talk about it. I never tend to worry about metagaming so much, so I have no problem sitting down with Ange and, kind of breaking apart, well, this happened here. Did you think about this? Did you think about that? Maybe next time you might want to consider this kind of thing. Because D&D is also about all of us learning how to be better players and better DMs. And one-on-one, it's really a great way to do that. And most importantly, have fun. We have some of the best laughs in our game, and I hear some of the most complaints out of my game, such as "don't take my artifacts," but it really is a lot of fun to do a one-on-one, and I really encourage it. Well, that's about this for this episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If there's other things you want to hear about, please write me, IM me. I'm available on Twitter. I'm available through the websites, through SoundCloud. Reach out. Let me know what you think and what you want to hear about. Please do subscribe through iTunes or your favorite podcasting app, or keep an eye out on our website, dungeonmastershandbook.wordpress.com. You can also always find us on SoundCloud. Search for Dungeon Masters Handbook. And please do share the podcast with your friends if you think they might be interested in hearing about old school campaigning. All right, that's it. So until next time, game on.